Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Cornell Dane, and you're now tuned into the Relationship Theater. So I wanted to do a quick breakdown of how this whole thing relates to the art of war. And if you aren't familiar, the art of war is a treatise that was written by Sun Tzu that explores the various tactics and strategies for achieving victory in warfare. And some of the prominent tactics outlined, I will get into in this video, but I truly believe that the winner, which I think at this point is clearly Kendrick, the winner utilized these 5 things more than the other guy did, more than Drake happened to do them. And I think that has been the difference. So one of the most important tactics that some people are a little upset about that Kendrick used is deception. And first, let's just kind of go through each of these, and then I will tell you what Kendrick did and how he used each of these 5 things. So deception. Sun Tzu talks about or emphasizes the importance of deceiving the enemy, of misdirecting the enemy. He goes as far as to say when they think you're in the water, you're on land, right? When they think you're shooting arrows, you're stabbing, right? It's completely, if they think that you're far away, you're close. Make them think you're close when you're far away. And so it could also mean pretending to be weak in a way, which, again, as I said before, I'll talk more about that as well in the end, because Kendrick did do something to make Drake think that he was weak, or at least he says he does, right? The other one was attack by stratagem, right? So use a strategy, and instead of relying on strictly how strong you are on brute force, Sun Tzu advocates for attacking the enemy and attacking their strategy and disrupting their plans. You guys, many of you already know where I'm going to go with that one. Okay, this could involve exploring their weaknesses by targeting key vulnerabilities, etc., etc. The third one is speed and agility. Again, many of you will understand what this means. Sun Tzu stressed the importance of being swift and adaptable on the battlefield. And this could mean outmaneuvering the enemy, exploiting gaps in their defenses, quickly responding to changing circumstances. Man, y'all know exactly where that's going, right? The third one would be know your enemy and yourself. Okay, so understanding both your own strengths and weaknesses as well as those of your adversary is crucial for success. And if you guys are following this, you know exactly where that's going, right? He just emphasized the importance of intelligence gathering, reconnaissance, careful analysis to inform strategic decisions, okay? The next one would be terrain and positioning. So Sun Tzu highlighted the significance of terrain and positioning in battle, basically by choosing favorable ground and exploiting natural features. A smaller force could outmaneuver or overcome a larger force, right? And you can kind of see that too. Many of you may know where I'm going with that, right? But the outcome hoped for with these tactics is typically victory or achieving strategic objectives with minimal loss of resources. In the case of actual war, a minimal loss of lives, right? And so Sun Tzu emphasizes the importance of achieving victory through superior strategy, intelligence, and maneuverability rather than relying on, as I said before, overwhelming force. So he's not trying to overwhelm somebody. He's not trying to bully somebody. And I think in the case of this battle, that was Drake's entire strategy. Whereas Kendrick did things a little bit differently, right? So as far as deception goes, I think, so Kendrick strategically leveraged, from a deception point, he leveraged the mole, right? He had someone on the inside who was feeding him information. He basically had a spy. So he had, and this is going to go into another category as well, but he leveraged he leveraged, well, to put it this way, Drake did not know that he knew these things. At least that's what we thought. Drake last night dropped a record that stated that he fed all of this information, but he also said this without providing any sort of proof. At least Kendrick had a picture. He had some receipts and some prescription capped bottles and all that kind of other stuff. But he used all of this stuff to, even if it was not true, he used all of it to weave a narrative that basically, as I said in a previous video, pilfered some of the fan base that Drake was relying upon to win this battle. Because remember, this is a rap battle. Each opponent is coming with an audience, is coming with a certain amount of favor. And so that is the currency at stake in this battle. And I believe that Kendrick pilfered. I believe he stole. I believe he took some of what it was that Drake brought to the table as far as, his moral compass or those that were behind him. And some of those people are now, if not in the middle, some of them are even on Kendrick's side based upon the accusations, right? The alleged involvement with minors, the hidden children. He used all of these things to position himself as a moral authority. So that also goes into something that is in Sun Tzu's Art of War, which is the moral compass, which is really the primary objective, or the number one thing. Everything kind of flows from there, right? And so exposing these alleged scandals within Drake's personal life, I think this helped. And getting this information from the inside, this is what hurt Drake's credibility, and he deceived Drake, or someone in his camp deceived him, that allowed and gave Kendrick an advantage. So the next one would be attack by stratagem. The beef represents a battle for, as I've said in a previous video, you might look at the thumbnail, it's a type of cultural custody. Where Kendrick asserts his dominance through his artistic prowess and his cultural relevance. Okay, that's what's at stake. Okay, and him focusing on attacking Drake's cultural relevance by calling him a white boy, by saying that he's not like us, by saying that he's really not as knowledgeable about the culture as he needs to be, because he had to go to Future for this, he had to go to Lil Baby for that. He had to, in his own way, pilfer different things from different artists in order to become culturally relevant. It wasn't something that he was born into. It's not a part of his own personal heritage. He's a created person he's a made man rather than a created person within the culture. And so this is a confrontation that Kendrick builds throughout the battle. And I think, dare I say, he's pretty successful in showing this to be true. The next thing that Kendrick does, we talked about speed and agility, okay? Kendrick was faster to the punch. So much so, and I argue because of the deception, because of what he knew, because of the mole, he was so quick to make these records that he was able to respond. He was able to step on, Family Matters. That release was out for like 20 minutes before Kendrick himself had a response. And that response totally took all of the air. It rebutted everything about Drake's response. And so as good of a song as it was, because it was a jam, right? It was bopping. As good as it was, it just didn't have any standing because Kendrick's Meet the Gram swept the legs from underneath it, right? And so his ability to swiftly adapt to the new information and capitalize on that opportunity, even though it was fed to him by Drake, this just showed how much better he was at maneuvering within the rap beef and how he was able to maintain an advantage, because that's what it was all about. You know what I mean? The next one one more thing about speed and agility. I really truly believe that it worked against Drake in a way, because Drake had a whole team. This was an argument, and this is a thing. It's not as if anybody was under the impression that Drake was actually writing his own line, but it ran counter to the argument that he could overwhelm Kendrick because he had all of these writers. That mold and the deception underneath that whole thing, and the fact that Kendrick said some of the people on his own team wanted him to fail, this worked against him. And it kind of nullified whatever advantage that he was supposed to have with regards to speed and agility. And that was like, if you really look at it, you really think about it, that was probably the most striking turn of events, I think, in this entire thing. And I think Drake was not expecting that to happen. So the next thing that Drake did, or the next thing within the Sun Tzu framework, is to know your enemy and yourself. Okay? So Kendrick, he demonstrated strong leadership qualities by shaping the public perception of Drake, right? He's rallying his fan base through strategic attacks on Drake's character. And these were moral attacks. I think that is the difference. Drake attempted to do this. The issue is that the things that were said about Drake were more egregious, maybe 10 times, 50 times more egregious than what was said about Kendrick Lamar. So the issue then became, how do you at least meet the accusations where they are, right in the middle? How do you at least make them equal in the eyes of the fan base, in the eyes of the audience? Because if we're both in the audience of the theater, as I explained in the last one, we're both in the audience, we know exactly who the real villain is. Even though our hero is making mistakes, our hero has some failures, we know exactly who he is and what his mistakes are. And we're fine with those mistakes. We're fine if he's getting a divorce, right? We're not fine with him if he got into a physical altercation. That's not cool. I get it. But it's different if you are the cultural head of hip hop and you are having sex with minors, you're hiding children, you are actually, you have a questionable sexual orientation, let's say. At least you haven't come out and made it clear to everyone that this is who you are, which is, again, these are all arguments being made through the music. You are, everything about you is fake. This is not your real body, etc. There were just too many things, right? There was just too much. And I think that this really did hurt Drake, right? So, Kendrick's understanding of both his own strengths and his weaknesses, as well as those of Drake, allowed him to craft just effective strategies, man, that capitalized on Drake's vulnerabilities and just leveraged his own strengths. Okay? Because then you also have to jog your memory about each person's contributions to hip hop. What did it look like? What were the visuals? Kendrick is, in some ways, he's a martyr. He's speaking out for the Black community. On the other hand, you have Drake, who's not doing so many of these things, and he just wants to dance and party. In many ways, this is the difference between the two fan bases. But when you add in that moral component, people wake up to some things and they start to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to distance myself from this guy, right? I think the last one that I wanted to discuss was terrain and positioning. And basically, Kendrick, he positioned himself as the morally upright figure. Drake had an argument about that. Keep in mind, because he made the argument that Kendrick was beating his wife, right? However, like I said, it just couldn't stand against Drake being a pedophile and him living in a mansion with pedophiles, and him not being of the culture or of the heritage. And on top of that, he just had a consistent output of music that allowed him to maintain favorable ground, and it enabled him to just control that narrative. He had too many talking points, and I think Drake only had one, really. And it as much as we say that Kendrick may have lied, which is deception, I don't know if he lied yet. I think it's going to come out whether he lied or not. But even if he did, that all's fair in love and war, right? But by aligning the talking points with Sun Tzu's new Sun Tzu, we can kind of see how Kendrick Lamar effectively utilized each of these strategic principles better than Drake did. And he used them to gain an advantage over Drake in the rap beef. And I really think that this analysis highlights Kendrick's strategic prowess, sheds light on the dynamics of the feud within the context of the art of war. Okay. He played chess. He wasn't playing checkers. I think Drake took it for granted that he was a superstar and that he was going up against a superstar, and he just wasn't as prepared. So with that being said, I do think they baited him in, which is, again, is deception. Just want to throw that in there. But with that said, tell me what you guys think. Love to hear from you. And again, this is a relationship principle. These are relationship principles, believe it or not. Relationships aren't just romantic. They're how we deal with each other, one another on a daily basis, even if we are at war. All right. So I hope to see you guys on the next one. Peace.